The funny thing about the Honda Africa Twin 2026 is it might be the most underrated big adventure bike right now. Everyone talks about big horsepower numbers, crazy electronics, or flashy designs. But when I really looked into this bike, I realized Honda is playing a very different game. And honestly, it made me rethink what an adventure bike should be. When I compared the Africa Twin to bikes like the BMW GS or KTM Adventure, the first thing I noticed was how calm Honda feels about everything. It's not trying to scream, "Look at me." It feels like Honda built this bike for people who actually ride far, not just talk about riding far. That subtle confidence is easy to miss. Most people assume the Africa Twin is boring because it's not the most powerful. I thought that too at first, but then I looked at how the power is delivered. It's smooth, predictable, and honestly more usable in real riding. Big horsepower numbers look cool on paper, but smooth power feels better after 6 hours on the road. That's something spec sheets don't show. What surprised me was how balanced the 2026 version feels on paper. Honda didn't chase extreme performance. They refined what already worked. Suspension updates, electronics tweaks, and small usability improvements. Not headline-grabbing changes, but rider-focused ones. That tells me this bike is designed by riders, not marketing teams. Here's a misconception I see everywhere. People think big adventure bikes are only for off-road experts. The Africa Twin actually feels more approachable than most. The riding position, weight distribution, and throttle tuning make it less intimidating. It's still a big bike, yes, but it feels friendly in a way many rivals don't. One thing I noticed when comparing it to the KTM 1290 is personality. KTM feels aggressive, like it wants to fight you. The Africa Twin feels like a calm travel partner. Neither is wrong, but for long journeys, calm is underrated. You don't want adrenaline all the time. Sometimes you want peace. Let's talk about the DCT transmission for a second. People either love it or hate it. I used to think it was unnecessary, but the more I thought about real-world adventure riding, the more it made sense. In traffic, on trails, when you're tired, not worrying about clutch work can actually make riding more enjoyable. Purists will disagree, but comfort matters on real trips. Another thing most people miss is Honda reliability. It sounds boring, but it's actually exciting. When you're riding thousands of miles from home, reliability is more thrilling than horsepower. I noticed many adventure riders secretly prefer bikes that just work. They don't want drama in the middle of nowhere. The Africa Twin's design is also interesting. It's not flashy like Ducati or BMW. It looks functional, almost old school. But that's the charm. It feels like a tool, not a fashion accessory. And tools age better than trends. A practical takeaway if you're considering this bike: think about how you actually ride, not how you imagine riding. If most of your riding is highways and occasional dirt roads, the Africa Twin makes more sense than hardcore off-road monsters. If you're doing technical trails every weekend, maybe you want something lighter. Be honest with yourself. I also noticed how Honda keeps the Africa Twin's weight relatively controlled for its class. It's still heavy, but it doesn't feel like a tank on paper. Weight matters more than people admit, especially when you drop the bike alone in the dirt. That's when spec sheets stop being fun. Another misconception: people think adventure bikes must be uncomfortable. The Africa Twin actually looks like a long-distance couch on wheels. Wide seat, relaxed posture, good wind protection. Comfort isn't exciting in reviews, but it's everything after 300 miles. What really made me curious was Honda's approach to tech. They added modern electronics but didn't overcomplicate it. Riding modes, traction control, screens, but still simple enough to understand. I hate bikes that feel like smartphones on wheels. This one feels like a motorcycle with smart features. Big difference. If I had to point out one mistake people make, it's judging this bike only by numbers. Horsepower, torque, top speed, those matter, but they don't tell the whole story. The Africa Twin is about balance, trust, and rideability. Those things are hard to quantify. Here's a small insight I think many miss. Adventure bikes are lifestyle machines, not performance machines. You buy them for the idea of freedom. Honda seems to understand that deeply. The Africa Twin doesn't try to be extreme. It tries to be dependable, and dependability is freedom. If I were choosing between Africa Twin and something like BMW GS, my practical advice is simple. BMW feels premium and tech-heavy. Honda feels durable and rider-focused. Ask yourself if you want luxury or longevity. There's no wrong answer. Another thing I kept thinking about is resale and ownership. Honda bikes usually hold value well and are cheaper to maintain. That matters if you're not just a weekend rider. Long-term ownership changes how you see a bike. A bike that's easy to own becomes your favorite bike. I also noticed how the Africa Twin community is different. Less flexing, more riding stories. That vibe tells you who the bike is for. People who actually go places. Sometimes the community reflects the product better than ads. So is the Honda Africa Twin 2026 perfect? No, it's big, expensive, and not the most exciting on YouTube thumbnails. But that might be exactly why it's special. It feels built for real riders, not algorithms. If I were choosing an adventure bike for a long global trip, the Africa Twin would be very high on my list. Not because it's the fastest, but because it feels like it would bring me home. And that's a weirdly emotional thing to say about a motorcycle. Honestly, the more I looked into the Africa Twin, the more I respected Honda's quiet confidence. In a world of loud bikes and louder marketing, this one just does its job. And sometimes that's the most exciting thing of all.